Hello, everyone. I'm Buford MC, and welcome back to another adventure in GregTech New Horizons. So today I have a couple of steel tanks set up behind me, and we are going to be working on trying to fill these steel tanks up with a couple of basic gases that we're going to need in pretty large quantities going forward. So we're going to need to get some hydrogen. We're going to need some oxygen, and we're also going to need to be making some nitrogen today. So there's a couple of setups we're going to need to get prepared, and we're going to do it together. And the reason we need these is, well, for various things, really. Hydrogen, well, if we come to the quest book, actually, hydrogen we're going to need to deal with our oil processing, which is something we're going to have to do relatively soon. We first have to get the oil first, but I want to kind of get the hydrogen set up first so that we can go ahead and get it kind of stockpiled a bit before we get into the point where we need it for oil processing and stuff like that. The oxygen we're actually going to need for a couple of other things as well in the near future. One of them is we need it in order to make the sulfuric acid here, which is something we are going to need going forward. So we are going to need to stockpile ourselves a bit of oxygen, and there's a couple of other things I think as well. I think the arc furnace is a very useful machine, and I believe it does use oxygen as well. Let's take a look. Yeah, it uses oxygen for a couple of interesting things. So, yeah, raw iron right there. That's a big one right there. We're going to want to set that up at some point soon. So, yeah, oxygen is going to be quite useful as well. And then nitrogen is something I don't really think we have an immediate use for at this moment, but I think it is used for the EBF. At least some recipes. In fact, there is a quest for it, I believe, down here. Yep, and like nitrogen. So, we're going to need that. Doesn't tell you what it's used for, but I believe it's used in the EBF, actually. We'll take a quick peek. Yeah, blast furnace. I don't need that. Yeah, there it is right there. That's how you get the aluminium ingots. You need nitrogen inside of the EBF, which, of course, we don't have that yet, but we'll get there probably soon. We're not that far, I don't think. I think once we get the polyethylene, I think the EBF might be our next big goal. We'll see. But yeah, that's the goal for today, though. We're going to be setting up these 3 tanks, and yeah, we got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. So, we've got these 3 tanks here, and I've already got the wires and stuff prepared for where the machines need to go, and I think I've got a general idea of what we're going to need to do. So, first, we're going to deal with the hydrogen and the oxygen. And actually, before we do anything, let me actually mention one other thing. I say we're going to be making hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Technically, we're only going to need to make 2 different setups because in order to make hydrogen, so let's take a look at the recipes, actually. In order to make hydrogen, actually, the simple way would be look at the water cell. We're going to need to use 1 bucket of water inside of an electrolyzer. Let's see if I can find that anywhere. Where is the electrolyzer at? There it is. There's the electrolyzer. So we're going to be using it inside of an electrolyzer, and 1 bucket of water is going to give us oxygen and hydrogen. So as you can see, we kind of get a byproduct of oxygen in the process of electrolyzing water, which makes sense. It is H2O, so makes sense. But this is going to take 100 seconds, and that's a lot of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to double up that setup, and ooh, it does appear that we're having a bit of a blood moon tonight. Interesting. All right, well, let's carry on then. Let's not get that in the way of everything. So let's see, where were we actually? So we were looking at the water cell here. So what we're going to be doing is, if I can find it again. There's a lot of uses for water, that's the reason. There we go, electrolyzer. So we're going to need to do this, and this is going to take 100 seconds. So we're going to double up the setup so that we can get our hands on oxygen and hydrogen. And again, the oxygen is a byproduct in a sense, so we get that from doing this setup right here, alongside, of course, the hydrogen that we're going to be getting as well, which is the main thing we're going to get out of this. But again, it takes 100 seconds, and, well, basically what we're going to do is we're going to double up. We have 2 machines here and 2 machine slots here, and we're going to basically have 2 setups for making our hydrogen and oxygen. But we're not actually going to do the recipe that is listed right here. And the reason is, it is 100 seconds, but there is a better way. And that's the reason we actually have 2 machine slots in front of those areas, because we're actually going to do this one. For 73.5 seconds, we're going to turn one water cell into something called an electrolyzed water cell. And if we look at the use for this, we can turn that inside of an electrolyzer into an oxygen cell and 2 hydrogen, 1.5 seconds. So the grand total is actually only 75 seconds. So it's actually quite a bit faster than doing it with just normal water. The only downside is we need 2 electrolyzers. So that's how we're going to go ahead then and make ourselves some of that hydrogen and oxygen. So let's see if we've got it. So I've got all the stuff we're going to need inside this backpack. And actually, before we do that, let me also explain the nitrogen side of this. So the nitrogen is a little bit simpler. So the nitrogen, the way we're going to make the nitrogen is we're going to take a look at the centrifuge, and we're going to need ourselves some compressed air cells, which you just get from putting an empty cell inside of a compressor. Not really a big deal. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put those 5 compressed air cells inside a centrifuge, which is going to give us almost 4 buckets of nitrogen, but we also get another byproduct of more oxygen, as well as a couple of empty cells. So basically, we just need to set up a setup for hydrogen, and we need to make a setup for nitrogen, and as a byproduct, we're going to get oxygen from both of them. So I've designed this in a way where I think we can kind of make this fit kind of well. So, of course, the blood moon is kind of annoying here, isn't it? I can't really sleep that off, but, well, we'll just carry on anyways. But what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go ahead and start setting up these machines. So we have our basic electrolyzers here, and I've already set up some stuff here. So we're actually getting power pumped in from the bottom. In fact, let me quickly show you that as well. So I've got power actually coming in from the bottom because this does require quite a bit of power, particularly the hydrogen does. So down here, what did I just pick up? I got an ender pearl. So we got our little setup right here for the large potent fluid pipes. That's actually coming from down here, actually. So I've got a connection up here, and we've got some the steam turbines set up for all of this. And you might be wondering also why I just got that ender pearl. I actually had a brilliant idea not too long ago that I've been getting a lot of endermen and ender creepers coming into the deep basement area down here. So what I've done is I have a new iron golem down here. So that's why we picked up the ender pearl just now, because he's been hard at work taking down those endermen, I'm sure. So I'm always happy to see that. Let's put that away for now. We don't need that. Right, so we've got a lot of work to get on with, and we're not going to let this blood moon distract us. So we're going to need to set up these electrolyzers. So we're going to go after the hydrogen first. So the way we're going to work on this is first we need to get water, and we have water coming in right here. So we're going to need a couple other things as well. We're going to need some of these low-voltage fluid tanks. And I think that's good for now. Let's set up all of that first. So we're going to put our basic electrolyzer here. Now, let's see. Actually, is that what I wanted? Yes, that is what I want. I want to put an electrolyzer there, and we're going to put a low-voltage fluid tank there, and another one here, and then we're going to basically kind of mirror that on this side. Yep, that should work. So that's the first step there. Now we're going to have to connect up water into these fluid tanks on the ends. So let's go ahead and grab ourselves, let's see, small bond fluid pipes, because we're going to have to connect you up right here. So this is my water pipe. It's coming from the, basically comes along here. This is the one that we connected up to the multiform, so it goes all the way over here, basically. That's where we get the water from. So that comes in there, and what we're going to do is we're going to connect you along. We're going to... Will that work, actually? Yeah, that should work fine. There's nothing else I can do, actually. This will have to work like that. So we'll drag you along. Okay, we might have to drop this down a bit here. Look a little bit weird, but this is the best I think we can do at the moment. And we'll go ahead and connect up the arrows like this. Oh, and speaking of which, actually, I have learned something else with these pipes and the wrench. So let me actually try this as well. So one thing I've learned is if you push... Well, actually, if you look at this right here, it tells you underneath the EU charge there, it says press, I think that's the period button to change mode. And this is something I learned. So if I push that button, you're going to see it now says wrench LV line mode. And if I come here now and I try to put the little arrows on this, it now connects the entire thing in one click. So that's kind of neat right there. So I don't think I can actually disconnect and connect them. So actually, if I go back to that, I can't actually... Oh, maybe I can actually. That was weird. It wasn't working before. Now it isn't working again. But yeah, something weird like that. It wasn't letting me, like, disconnect or connect when it's in line mode. I have to turn it back to normal. But anyways, though, the main thing is that I figured out that's a way you can actually connect all these pipes up. Like, in kind of one click with the arrows kind of makes it a little bit more convenient. We also need to connect you up to here. And there is a reason this is coming in from the side, because there's quite a few things we have to consider with this. Alright, so these now should be filling with water, which they are. Lovely. Alright, so these are filling up with water now. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to turn that water into the electrolyzer. But to do that, we are going to need to turn it into cells. The only way we can get the electrolyzed water cell is by... If I can find the recipe again. There we go. We're going to have to use the water cell. There's no other way. I can't just put it in as normal water. And it looks like the blood moon's starting to fade away now, which is good. And let's see, we're going to need a few cells. And this is why we're using these low voltage fluid tanks, because the way these work is I can put cells in. We're not going to need many, I don't think. Maybe like 4. Put 4 in. And the way this works is these, I can put cells in and they'll automatically fill up with water cells. And what we should be able to do is I should be able to add a conveyor module onto the side of you. I think we export will work. Let's see. It does take 20 seconds to find out. Because this one doesn't, of course, have an auto input and output stuff like that. Yep, there we go. So now this is running in the basic electrolyzer, and it will take 73.5 seconds. In fact, we can do the same thing over here. In fact, I might only need 2 of them at once. But let's grab another conveyor module and connect you up. Import you. Oh, no, export, excuse me. Yeah, export will do. So this is going to fill up. It does take a bit of time. And oh, before I forget also, we also have to add batteries into these, because you might have noticed when I was looking at the recipes, both of these recipes require 30 EU a tick. And I only have 1 turbine coming into these right now. The purpose of the batteries is that, well, they're not both going to be running constantly. This one only runs for like a second and a half, so the batteries should be able to compensate for that fact. That's why we have... Oops, didn't want to put you there. Put you in the battery slot. They should compensate, I believe. So we'll get this to fill up here in just a second. Looks like 10 more seconds to go, and we will get our electrolyzed water cell from this. And of course, this part's very simple. There we go, electrolyzed water cell. All we have to do is set you to item auto output. You go in there, and now you have to be careful about this part, because we have to set that to circuit 1. And there we go, 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen cell. Now, this is the part where I have to be a little bit fancy, which is why we have a fluid tank on top. Also, let's set you up as well, actually, before I forget. Item auto output should work. Yep, and you're off and running again. So that's good. So what we're going to want to do now is now we need to get out the hydrogen and an oxygen cell. Of course, this is an item and this is a fluid. So how we're going to do it, we'll start with the item. We're going to set you to item auto output. In fact, actually, no, we're going to put a conveyor, actually. Let's put a conveyor on you, because conveyors are cheaper than pumps. And we're going to set you to export. That should work, and it'll just take 20 seconds, of course. And then we'll do the same thing with you. Oops, did set you to circuit 1. There you go. Lovely. And I think we're going to set you to export as well. Right, so now what we have is we have oxygen inside this low voltage fluid tank, and we have our hands on some hydrogen inside of here. And more oxygen, of course, which will go up into here. Right, of course. So what we're going to do first, actually, is we're going to deal with this cell. What we want to now do is we want to actually get this cell looped back into here so we can get more water, which will go into here. Basically, it'll be a loop. So all we need to do for that is we need some item pipes, don't we? And I don't have any item pipes, so let's go get some item pipes. In fact, actually, we're not going to use the tin item pipes because I actually have better pipes now. Let's see. In here, yep, electrum plates. So, recently we did the, what was it called again? It was like, not electrum. Let's see, I gotta find the quest file. I've already forgot the name of it. It was, not here. Electrotine, that one right there, yeah. So I've been processing a lot of that. We got a lot of that in the nether recently, and it gives us a byproduct of electrum. So I figure we might as well start using electrum pipes more because, well, we're getting it for basically free now from the electrotine. Well, it's not free. Nothing's free. But it's a better use than using our tin supply because I use tin for a lot of other stuff. We need it for cables. We need it for bronze. We need it for things like tin rotors. So we need it for all types of stuff, but we're going to use this actually for the electrum pipes. Let's see, can I find that recipe easily? There we go. We're going to use the small ones since those are going to be quite easy to use. And there we go. Lovely. And that is quite a few of those, isn't it? We'll go ahead and set that up. Right, so basically we're going to have to set up the loop. So all we have to do then is we just come here like this. Do the same thing with you. And we're going to need 2 more conveyor modules. One of them, I guess it can go on either the machine or... Oh, that works. And you'll probably notice we now have these cells that have already gone through and they're now into water cells. And of course, those water cells will be pushed back into basic electrolyzer here in a moment. Oh, now it's raining. Golly, we're having all types of weather today, aren't we? Blood moon, rain. But anyways, as you can see now, the water cells have been pushed back into the electrolyzer, so the loop is now complete. Same thing over here. Good. Right, so now we've sorted out kind of the cells. Those are now running in a loop, and we're stockpiling ourselves hydrogen and oxygen. So now we want to get it into the tank here. And this is why these two are kind of right here. So what we're going to do is we need to sort out a way that we can get 2 fluids basically. Well, basically we need 2 fluids to go through 1 block. That's the only way this is going to work kind of easily. So the solution I have to that is we have made these new kind of pipes right here called quadruple bronze fluid pipes. And basically what these are, it's 4 normal bronze fluid pipes basically smashed together. And I believe the way these work is they're going to be able to kind of move multiple fluids through a single block. Now, before we actually do that, do we have any other pipes? Let's go grab some other pipes. Because I don't actually need it for that first block. Let's head over here and see if we can grab... Do we have any... let's see. Yeah, normal bronze will work. I only need like 2, I think. Maybe even 1, actually. Alright, so let's head back down then and set the rest of this up. So, what we're going to do, we're going to set you up first with the bronze. Believe, and then, yep, you're going to go there, and we're going to set the fluid auto output. There we go, fluid auto output. Yep, so that's filling in now. And what we're going to need to do is we are going to have you go up, and now we're going to add on the quadruple bronze fluid pipe. Right, and that is going to go in like this. I think we're going to have that sent to the back. Right, so let's turn that off for a second. And now what we're going to need to do is we're going to add on 2 electric pumps to the side of you. Set to export. Let's see how that's working. And there we go. We have hydrogen and oxygen traveling through this pipe here. Perfect. So that's actually working exactly how I hoped it would. Right, so now what we're going to need to do, all we need to do simply is just come up here. We have the kind of hatches there. The valves, excuse me, that's what they're called. And we just have to connect these up, and we should start seeing these fill in. Did I connect you up? Yeah, I did. Not yet. Keep going forward a bit. Then you go up. And we'll connect you up, I think. Alright, now, which one is going where? Of course it is. Of course they wouldn't. Oh, hydrogen's going in both, actually. Right, so... Ooh. Wow, this really is a weird day, isn't it? Alright, now I can sleep since it's a thunderstorm. Wow, this has been a really strange day in terms of weather. Blood moon, rain, thunderstorm. We don't get thunderstorms and rain often because I usually sleep most of the time, so I think that resets the weather cycle. But the blood moon made it so that it lasted longer. Right, we need to get this out of here, actually. That should be able to reset it. I want hydrogen in that tank. There we go, oxygen, perfect. Lovely. All right, so this is now filling in with oxygen. You're filling in with hydrogen. Why do we have 26 and you have 12? Wouldn't that be 13 because this is a 2 to 1? Unless, I guess, there might be an oxygen cell that's straggling somewhere. Maybe not, though. Not sure. Oh, maybe it's because... Well, no, actually, no. Oh, there we go. There's 13. Yeah, it probably was. It was probably just... It fell behind. But yeah, it looks like I think everything is set up, I think. It certainly looks like it is. It's a little bit complicated looking with these. You can't really see the tanks too well, but it does serve its purpose, I think, the way I wanted it to. We don't really need these signs here either. I just put these here to just mark which ones we're going to go where. Can take those down. Take you down as well. But yeah, there we go. We got our hydrogen set up. We got our oxygen set up, and that's the important thing right there first. So just to kind of summarize it, we have water coming into these fluid tanks on the ends. These are going to push a water cell into the first electrolyzer, which is going to turn into an electrolyzed water cell, which quickly processes through here to give us the hydrogen and oxygen. Oxygen is pushed up into the fluid tank on top. Hydrogen is pushed into the pipe system here. And then, of course, in this fluid tanks here, we have oxygen being pushed over into the quadruple fluid pipe. The empty cell is pushed over into the item pipe and back into here, where it fills up with water again, and it goes back through. Right, so that's the first setup done. Looks like we got all of that prepared. A little bit of a mess, I guess, but as long as it serves its purpose, it's good enough in my eyes. Right, so next we have to deal with nitrogen now, so we're going to try and deal with that next. Got a whole bunch of different pipes on me. So let's put away you. Let's put you back on. And let's get to work on this now. So the way to make nitrogen is going to start by needing a compressor. So, in fact, I don't even need to look at the recipe. I know what it is. So grab this and this. And we're going to go ahead and start by putting a compressor right here. Now, this setup is not going to require nearly as much power, so that's the good news, but it does take time as well. So we're going to need to give you a couple of empty cells. We'll go with 15. That'll do for now. And that is going to fill in. It takes 15 seconds per cell, and we need 5 of them in order to start making nitrogen. So that will fill in there. And we're going to put a basic centrifuge next to you. And we're going to connect you up like that. We're going to give you the item auto output, which will put the compressed air cell into the centrifuge. Of course, we'll need 5 in order to proceed. And once we do that, what we're going to get, let's take a look. We're going to get 3 things, actually. So this one's a little bit trickier to deal with. It took me a little bit of time to think about it, but what we're going to get out of this is we're going to get nitrogen, we're going to get oxygen cell, and we're going to get an empty cell. So we have to be a little bit fancier in how we actually deal with this. And in fact, we're going to need more bronze pipes for this to work, I think. So let's go make some. I could use potent pipes. Yeah, let's use potent pipes. Why not? I don't mind using those. And by the way, the reason we're actually using the quadruple bronze fluid pipes, not the quadruple potent fluid pipes, well, the simple answer is, if I look up potent, there is no quadruple potent fluid pipe, so I have to use bronze. I could have used steel, but it's a little bit more expensive. Bronze is not that bad. Right, so, looks like you're off and running here. 80 seconds, that's good. So we're going to need to set up a way of getting nitrogen out of you. So how we're going to do this is The nitrogen's going to come out from the top. I'm not going to set that up yet, but that'll use a pump, I'm sure. And it does give you quite a bit in one go, so we're going to do that, and we'll do something like this, I think will work. We'll adjust it as needed. But something, I think, like that will work. Alright, so that's good enough on that. So let's grab the rest of the stuff I need out of here. We're going to need the barrel, and we're going to need you as well. I think that's good for the moment. Right, so now what we have to deal with, we're going to get this out in a moment. We're going to get, of course, we'll get the nitrogen. And then we'll get the, I think it was the one oxygen cell, and we're going to get 4 empty cells. So let's see what happens when this finishes first. Oh, there we go. So we got nitrogen, and we got oxygen cell, and an empty cell. So the challenge here is we have to deal with what we do with 2 different items. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab some electrum item pipes. This is how I figure we're going to be able to do this the best. We're going to set you up there. We're going to put a barrel. Actually, no. How is this going to work the best? Because what we need to do is we need to get these empty cells funneled back into you. So that's kind of where we run into a little bit of a challenge. I can't really go in from the bottom either. Right, we have to be a little bit fancy with how we do this, is what I mean. Because this pipe here is blocking the way. I mean, I could just go around it. It would look ugly, but it would serve its purpose. But the main goal I had at first was I'm going to put a barrel here. And we're going to continue this pipe along. We're going to put a low-voltage fluid tank here. The purpose of this is going to collect the oxygen. And this guy is going to collect ourselves empty cells. So I'm going to lock you to a cell. So that would be the first thing. And then you'll be oxygen, and we'll pump that back in there. Right, I think that'll work. So let me set this up first. So what are we going to do? Item is going to go... Conveyor modules are cheaper than the pumps, so I'm more willing to use a conveyor module. So we use a conveyor module for you on the items. You'll be set to export there, and because this is closer, it should push... Well, it can't push the oxygen cell into here, obviously. So it has to go into here. Empty cells aren't going to go in here because they'll be collected by this first, I believe. Keep an eye on that. Alright, so that's there. Now we need to get you out, so we're going to need to use another conveyor module. That'll be set to import because it's connected to the pipe. That goes back in there. Lovely. Right, so we're going to actually need another conveyor module because this is going to eventually have to get back into the other system. You know what, actually? I just had an idea. I know how we can fix this. It's going to look weird, but I can't think of any other way of doing it. That's how we're going to do it. And yeah, looks a little bit weird, but what I can do now is I can come right here. I can kind of thread that through there and down into the compressor. That should work. And I do need another conveyor module, which I believe... Yep, I'm out of them. So let's go make a couple more. Yeah, we do need quite a few covers for this, but... Again, conveyor modules, in my opinion, are cheaper because, I mean, the rubber sheets for us are free at this point. Pumps use... Well, they use a whole bunch of stuff, so it's a little bit more expensive, but conveyor modules, not too bad. We can make 2 more. That's good enough for now. I think we only need 1 more. I think this will be enough to finish setting everything up. We'll take a look. But yeah, it's a bit of work. That's definitely, you know, a lot of stuff we've had to set up here to get this working. But we'll put you there, and you will be set to import, I believe. That should send the cells back through, I believe. Take a look. Yep, there we go. Empty cells going through the compressor. And this should all be a closed loop in terms of the cells now. Right, so now we go ahead and deal with the nitrogen and the oxygen. So nitrogen is going to go up into this pipe here, as we've just determined. It does look weird, but I can't do much more about this at this point. I mean, this area is meant to be more of a pipe area anyways. We're going to have to live with this. So I'm going to put that there. So that actually just needs to be, I believe, fluid auto output. Lovely. So that's going in there. This is oxygen here, so we're going to need to set up a pump for you, which is in this backpack. So you're going to be a pump. Let's connect up the pipes first. Now, I guess I can use potent for that. Put that there. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. Where these two pipes meet, we're going to do the same thing we did over here, and we're going to set up the quadruple pipe since we now have two fluids kind of combining right here. So let's put the pump on you. There we go. You're filling up, and now should be able to fill that in, and we now have nitrogen and oxygen. Perfect. And all we need to do is hook that around into the middle, and I have another input kind of valve for oxygen on this tank on this side. So what we can do is come here. And we can go right there. And we're getting nitrogen in there. Perfect. Lovely. All right. So I think that is everything, actually. So it's a bit of a thing. It certainly is a process. There is a way I could make it look pretty. I mean, I don't know if I want to do it, but I could put the tin plates. I mean, yeah, we can give it a shot, see what it looks like. You know, I could do something like this. I won't do the top layer, but yeah, I could actually do the top layer. Yeah, I mean, see, actually, if I do something like that, that actually does look quite a bit better now, doesn't it? Now, I actually haven't verified everything's working perfectly yet. You can't really see the tanks from this side. That's the only other negative thing. So, there's the crowbar at. I can't really see the tanks all that well, but they're being blocked anyways. I mean, if I came around to this side, I can actually see the tanks just fine, but we really don't need to see the tanks all that much. It's more about filling them up because we're going to need to start using them. So, yes, it does seem to be working. I mean, the cells seem to be traveling through. Yep, 5 in there. Appears to be working. You seem to be operating. Yep, water cells in there. Yeah, seems like it's all working. So, I mean, I guess let's give it a shot. Let's see what it looks like if I actually do, you know, set it all up like this. Can't really do much about that one. That one's kind of an annoyance, but at least from the front side, when you look at it from the front of this, that's not bad. That's actually not bad. What I could also do is I could make some tin blocks, I think, and I could fill in these gaps here. Should we do that quick? Let's give that a shot as well. Let's just see how that looks, kind of to fill the whole entire thing in. And then I think we'll probably call it an episode, because I think we've achieved the goal that I wanted to get done. We've got our hydrogen, we've got our oxygen, and we've got our nitrogen all coming in here, so... Right, there's the tin at. Let's see... How many blocks do I want? I've got plenty of tin. So I'm willing to do this just to make it look a little bit better. Put you in there, put you in there. Should work. Block of tin. Does take a few seconds, but I don't think we need too much. I think this will fit in well with where the, there we go, blocks of tin. I think they'll fit in well with the plates. Let's take a quick look. So if I put that there, I put that there. Then I put you there, you there. Yeah. See, that looks actually quite a bit better to me now. There is this sticking out here, but again, I can't really do much about that, I guess. Yeah, not really. There's not really anything I can do about that. Not that I can think of. Guess I could add some more of these here as well on this end. But yeah, that's good enough in my opinion. It covers the tanks, but again, if I actually had to look at the tanks, I can come around to this side. And I think I eventually might expand this area down here back further along. So, but yeah, we got it. All of this setup right here is all for the purpose of creating the gases that we needed. We have our nitrogen, and we're already getting quite a bit, 23 buckets. We've got our oxygen in here, 43 buckets, and hydrogen. Already 74 buckets, not that bad. And these tanks hold about 1.75 million. So, not bad. Not bad at all. But yeah, that was the setup right there. In fact, actually, before I forget, I almost did. There is a quest here to turn in nitrogen cells, wasn't there? Yep, we need to get some. In fact, actually, I have cells on me, don't I? Let's go ahead and knock that quest out as well. We already turned in the hydrogen one. In fact, we can probably drop our hydrogen we already have into there. Because I think we have some up here. Where's that at? In here, yep, hydrogen. Do we have any oxygen? Ah, we have compressed air cells already. Any oxygen? Doesn't appear to be. That's fine. We'll just drop off some of this. Where's the hydrogen at? Yeah, it is kind of annoying, actually, that I've covered up the entire tanks there, but... Let's see, I might change it. I'm undecided. You know what? Let me know what you think, actually. Should I keep it like this, or should I actually remove the tin blocks and the tin plates and stuff and just keep the pipes looking the way they were? I'll let you decide, because I'm curious to see what you think. I'm honestly not sure which one I actually like more. I might like the pipes more. Anyways, what was I looking for? Hydrogen. There we go. We'll put those in there. And we'll take our nitrogen. That should complete a quest. There we go. In like nitrogen. And we'll put you right back, and then we'll take these back as well. Lovely. All right. So we got our gold done. We got our hydrogen and oxygen and our nitrogen. So that is perfect. And actually, before we end off, there's a couple more things I actually wanted to show you as well. Because you're probably wondering, what happened to the macerator and the electric furnace we had and all that stuff? Not electric furnace, the steam oven. The furnace, basically. Well, I actually moved them down here, so we've got all of our ore processing stuff now, all in one room down here. So, yep, there we go. We're actually processing stuff right now. We've got a ton of stuff, I think. Yeah, I've been quite busy, actually. And as you can see, we have a massive wall of dusts here. Here's all the electrotine. We now have almost 3,000 electrotine. We have 3 stacks of electrum, and, well, we're getting a bunch of other stuff. We're currently processing lead and silver. Yep, so we're processing quite a few things right now. Lots of stuff is being processed as per usual, because we need to. And before we end off, actually, I do want to mention one other thing, because this is something I ran into recently that I thought was kind of an issue, a little bit of an issue. So recently, I leveled up my crossbow. In fact, I was actually in the Twilight Forest. I actually went back to that little, like, hill dungeon, something like that, because I was trying to mine out some redstone, which, by the way, if you ever want redstone, go to those hills, because I got a ton of redstone from that place. But anyways, I was fighting some of the monsters there as well in the process, because, of course, there are monsters there, quite a few. And I leveled up, oh, not the crossbow, it was actually the bolts. I leveled up my bolts. And, well, I wanted to add more sharpness to them, because you can do that with quartz, of course. So you can use nether quartz. But you can also use Certus quartz for this. There's a quest for this. It describes the whole process of that. So if I went to the Steam Age, it was in here, I believe. Nether quartz sharpness. So it says if you have lots of Certus quartz, 1 piece of Certus is equal to 24 nether quartz. Right, and if I grab, I can't use the current sword because I think that already has no modifiers, but I think we have a weapon in here. Let's see. Yep, the Pan of Doom, that will work. So if I come here to the tool forge, you can also use a normal crafting station and give it a Certus quartz. It gives it more quartz. It does 24 instead of 1 nether quartz. So if I give it a nether quartz, put that in there, it does 1. The Certus quartz does, well, 24. So I don't have as much nether quartz as I do Certus quartz. I have a lot of Certus quartz. So I figured, let's grab those bolts again. Since I have this modifier, I want to give it more sharpness. So I put this in here, and I gave it Certus quartz, and it doesn't work. So I don't know why this doesn't work. Now, it can accept more sharpness, because if I give it nether quartz, it works. But for some reason, it doesn't accept the Certus quartz like every other kind of sharpness weapon does. This pan has no issue. That takes a Certus quartz, but for some reason, the bolts don't. So I think that might be a bug or something, but that's just something I noticed recently. I thought I'd mention it as well. So for some reason, you have to use nether quartz in order to give the bolts more sharpness. So that is something kind of interesting I noticed. Let's put those away. Also, drop those signs off as well. We don't need those. Right, so yeah, that is pretty much most of the stuff I want to do for today. We got our hydrogen, we've got our oxygen and nitrogen. And again, let me know what you think I should do here. Should I keep it like this? Or maybe should I just keep all the pipes exposed? Honestly, kind of thinking maybe I should keep the pipes exposed. But let me know what you think. I'm still torn on that. But before we end off, do we have any quests to turn in there? We did get that nitrogen, didn't we? Right, do we get a loot bag? No loot bag, just more compressed air cells and coins. Right, do we have any other quests? Let me put these coins away and check that quick. Any other quests that we completed today? Doesn't look like it. Nope, nothing down here. No other quests to turn in. We do actually have a loot bag, though, to open, I think. Yes, we have one here. Don't know where I got that from, but we do have a loot bag. So we will be able to open up one loot bag today. Hopefully, we'll get something good. Let's see. Ooh, we got farm hatches. We don't need those. Right, well, we got our mission for today accomplished. So we got our oxygen, we got our hydrogen. No, that's the hydrogen, that's the oxygen, and that's the nitrogen. But we got the 3 gases, and they all stockpiling. How much do we have right now? 42, 58, 104. Not bad. Not bad at all. But yeah, we got it all done. We got all the machines set up, and everything is working as I think it should. It seems like everything's functioning. So yeah, I think that is where we're going to end this episode. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.